What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Happy New Year, everybody out there watching. I'm interested to see what our viewership looks like today. Hopefully, everybody is in a good place, enjoying the day off, and ready for some NBA action. We have the first game tipping off in just under an hour now of these 8 games on the slate, 6 on the DFS slates tonight. Mike Gallagher, how are you?
Doing good. Ready for what's coming here. We got the Terry Rozier downgrade. I'll never forget 2016 Dwayne Wade flu-like symptoms gate. That was a memorable one from when I worked at Roto World. So yeah, hopefully we don't get much of that. Happy New Year to everyone. Excited to talk about the slate. Just recorded a podcast with you about the big OG trade that you guys should like. I think it was really good. And we talked awards stuff. We actually got another awards bet that we're going to give out a little bit here after you and I kind of talk through it. So yeah, well, I decided to wait and let our loyal viewers, get some money down before we all nuke this line. So
Yeah. All right. So teasing a bet coming as well. But let's get into the game by game stuff. Let's start with this Minnesota Knicks game that tips off at 3:00 Eastern time here in New York. Nothing on the Minnesota injury report to note, just without some G Leaguers. On the Knicks, they will have the debut of OG Anunoby and Precious Achiuwa. Malachi Flynn out with a sprained ankle. What are your notes here?
yeah, definitely expecting OG to start. Get Anthony Edwards. We took an Anthony Edwards under. OG has not been very good. We talked about Jaylen Brown cooking him, and almost everyone besides Donovan Mitchell has kind of given OG the business. But big line, early game, usually a good under to take there. So yeah, we should see the same starting center. I would expect Precious to move in Taj's spot. Maybe a little bit minute ceiling coming off of Hartenstein here. And then OG should play a bunch. The Tibbs workout plan certainly should be pretty high. But should be fun to watch this team play for the first game of the year.
Your expectation is that Josh Hart goes back to the bench with OG Anunoby starting here.
Yep.
How else would the rotation potentially be impacted by OG's presence?
Yeah, I could definitely see some. I think you're pretty much slotting in OG into RJ. I think OJ's minutes ceiling is a little bit and floor is a little bit higher, so you're going to get a little bit more of a squeeze on the Quentin Grimes of the world. Maybe Dante's upside isn't as much. Josh Hart's upside isn't quite as high either, because they're kind of similar from the on-ball bucket. So I think Josh Hart is impacted quite severely, from a minutes ceiling standpoint.
I think the interesting thing is while you're removing RJ Barrett's minutes, and we certainly expect that OG Anunoby might have a higher minute ceiling than RJ Barrett, you're also removing Emmanuel Quickley's minutes from the rotation as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that backup kind of ball handling spot. Obviously, they gave Deuce McBride an extension right after. He's the favorite to kind of earn those Quickley minutes. But if he's not able to fill all of those Quickley minutes, then whatever he's not able to fill kind of gets spilled over to Dante DiVincenzo, Quentin Grimes, Josh Hart. And it'll be interesting to see if we just see them play like a much tighter kind of 7-8 man, not rotation, because they'll still certainly use 9 players, but I'm interested to see if they just run even tighter, which we obviously saw when they were shorthanded without OG and Achiuwa against this Pacers team. They basically ran an 8 man. So that's something that I'm interested to see over time. I expect Flynn to compete with Deuce McBride to see if he could potentially earn a spot there. I know the Knicks obviously are signaling that they're confident in Deuce McBride by giving him an extension kind of right after that Quickley trade. So those are some of the thoughts that are running through my mind in terms of looking at this rotation kind of moving forward.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, let's move to the Cleveland-Toronto game. On the Cleveland side, they are without Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Isaiah Mobley, Ty Jerome, and Amani Bates. What are your notes on the Cavs? Donovan Mitchell doesn't need to let him know today because he is not listed as questionable. So what are your expectations for the Cavs tonight?
Yeah, just want to talk Jared Allen. The touches have been just ridiculous. Last 2 games, he's out front court touched Jokic. The stats have been insane. He's getting, passing, just completely killing it on my 30-man team. Nice win for me there. Thank you for Ohio. But yeah, pretty straightforward. We're going to see Dean Wade start. Get the Siakam matchup. Isaac Okoro guarding Scotty. We'll talk about the Raptors in a second. But yeah, pretty stabilized rotation. We continue to see Karis LeVert hang around this 27, 28 number, kind of regardless of who's out there with him.
Yeah, it seems like they've developed enough confidence in Craig Porter Jr. that they don't need to run up Karis LeVert and kind of push him above the minutes limitations that they've kind of quietly had on him. So that's something to note there. On the Toronto side, Garrett Temple questionable. Christian Koloko still out with this respiratory illness that has cost him the whole season so far. They will have Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett available today. So what are you expecting to see from the new look Raptors?
Yeah, I think they're going to bring Quickly up the bench, and then they would start RJ essentially, and like you're kind of swapping RJ and OG like kind of straight. So yeah, expecting that, a little bit of squeeze on the handling. We've seen Scotty Barnes not really tick up with this new starting lineup that they rolled out. They obviously didn't, they were shorthanded against the Pistons. Shout out to me, bet the Pistons for the first time this year, and I won on the money line. So that was what a fun bet that was, by the way. Just but yeah, should see tighter-ish minutes on these guys. Coming off a game where they've lost a couple games here, but yeah, I think RJ should be pretty full here, and then we'll see how Dennis Schroeder, Gary Trent Jr., and all these guys. We talked about how the Raptors could be sellers on the pod. It was quite fun to break down. So that'll be on your feeds pretty soon.
So you think the starters here are Siakam, Barnes, Barrett, Pirtle, and then Gary Trent Jr.? Is that what you're expecting, or do you think Schroeder moves back into the starting lineup? Because before this, we've seen some change with Schroeder kind of coming off the bench.
Yeah, I think RJ would be Gary Trent over Schroeder, which is a little bit. I don't know. They probably have to start Schroeder just to break up him and IQ. So yeah,
I could see Quickly starting for that reason.
100%. Yeah.
So like Schroeder and Trent have played together a little bit more. I could see that kind of being the thought, and then you start your main trade, your main trade piece acquisition. Also, starting next to Barnes isn't super challenging for IQ because he can play off ball, but it's obviously like this is a really quick turnaround. Not every team has the same sets and same plays and different things like that. So, we'll see on the starting lineup. But I would think it's either Trent or IQ is my guess. But obviously IQ and Schroeder is a little bit clunky in the second unit.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, Detroit and Houston. On the Detroit side of things, they're still without Isaiah Stewart, who has a sprain to his right great toe, not just the big toe, the great one. They're also without some G Leaguers. Any other notes on the Pistons riding their one-game winning streak?
Yeah, the captain of the toes there. So yeah, the Pistons broadcast, they were on a whole big spiel about great toe versus big toe. It was kind of funny to hear that. But yeah, pretty straightforward. I expect them to start the same way. Knox is really good. Shout out to him for getting this win. And the last minute of this game, how long was that? It was like 10 minutes. I felt like
it felt like a team trying to win their first playoff series in a game 7. It felt like a team trying to win their first NBA Finals. It was very sloppy at the end. It took forever. There was a lot of fouling. There was a lot of bad ball handling, but they pushed through and they got the win. Yeah,
for sure. So I think pretty straightforward. Weissman is running ahead of Bagley. I think that's going to continue.
Yeah, it looks like Asar Thompson is just sort of. I know Claff has already declared him on the best ball winner this year, so that'll be tough for that to continue to happen after the really strong start in the first month of the season. But man, he's down real bad from a fantasy perspective if Kevin Knox is the one kind of taking the minutes here. So I'm interested to see from Detroit's perspective if the elevated minutes we've seen from the starters continue or if that was streak related. Do you have any thoughts there? If we're going to continue to see like these upper 30s for Boyan, for Cade Cunningham, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I can't see why not. Cade's looked great. He hasn't looked tired at all. Monty's talked about his conditioning being really strong. So yeah, I think they're both pretty. And Cade's playing really well. The turnovers are down. He's shooting a lot better on pick and roll stuff, which I've been into talking about. Not a great matchup. Certainly, you're taking some on-ball defense away. We'll see about Jabari, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I maybe not the tippy top, 40 upside, but I think he's got like 38 upside here on minutes. That is.
Houston side of things, they're without Dylan Brooks still, right oblique strain. He's out. Tari Eason listed questionable with that lower left leg soreness. He has been listed questionable for like 6, 7, 8 games in a row, something like that, and he's played through pretty much all of them. So there was a minutes limitation noted last game on him. It was the second night of a back-to-back. I think that influenced things and why he came off the bench there. Jabari Smith Jr. listed questionable with a left ankle sprain here. It is not the second night of a back-to-back. So if Jabari is unable to go, I wonder if we'll see a change. They've had 2 days off. They have another day off after this. But what are your thoughts here on Jabari's Q tag, Tari Eason's Q tag, and how we can project the Rockets rotation?
Yeah, should get Tari in there. They were shooting for 25 minutes was the quote from Ime Udoka, and they got to 27. Still played really well. Tough loss for them. Too much Tyrese Maxey. Yeah, I was a little surprised Jabari gets a Q tag here. That ankle sprain was pretty nasty, and it seemed like he was going to miss more time. So we'll see about that. But I was surprised that Jeff Green started. We talked a little bit about Aaron Holiday. I was the Tari bull in our Slack, and I was wrong because I wanted to put him at 31. But you're the voice of reason and correctly said to pull him down. Shout out to you. But we'll see. Probably game time. He's a tough dude. He's played through a lot of stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised. Like I think most players would miss this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jabari's out there. Probably not a super high upside on the minutes. We've seen him hit like 40s, but I think he's got like a 33, 34 ceiling. So we'd probably put him at 30 and a half minutes if and when he's in there.
Yeah, and I think one thing to always think through in terms of replacing players in starting lineups and whatnot is obviously the direct backups are the first person you're always going to go to, is assuming that they'll get the bulk of the minutes. And in most cases, you'll be right in those situations. But there are some situations where there might, like some teams you've noted coaches in the past, like I'm blanking on the name right now. The old Pistons coach, Dwayne Casey. You had mentioned in the past that like to elevate kind of the third tier players because he likes to keep the second unit in check and stuff. And in this situation, I personally thought that one of the things that they would want is the defense and the shooting from Jabari Smith to try to replace that. And Tari brings the defense, but in a different way, and not so much the shooting side of things. And so I thought there was a chance that it was Jeff Green or Aaron Holiday or something like that here in the spot. Jeff Green played a lot more than I would have expected, even if I would have assumed, like once he was starting, I was thinking, like 24 minutes or something like that. They'll run him out there for that. Might even be the high end. 33 was, they just really have a lot of trust with Uncle Jeff, as most teams have. Denver had a lot of trust with him last year too. So good tidbits from that first game. But I just will preach. It was the second night of a back-to-back. I don't know how much that influenced the Tari Eason decision with that first game. So we'll see tonight. If Tari Eason is starting and Jabari's out, I think that's a really good signal that, hey, they were just concerned about the back-to-back in a minute situation. If he's not starting, I think it's a little bit up in the air on if there's still going to be some minutes limitations, if they just prefer him in the second unit. Like, I think it's a little bit less clear. Okay.
Yep. And should mention just one more thing too. Really good game from Jalen Green. He has been getting killed on minutes. We've seen Aaron Holiday come for him, Tari come for him, and excellent game from him offensively, anyways. And he's been just really in a rut, so he may have a little bit of a longer leash today.
Yep. All right, let's move to Indy and Milwaukee. On the Indiana side, Bruce Brown upgraded to doubtful. But still dealing with that right knee bone bruise. Again, appreciate Indiana listing him. I'm still tilted about them not listing him at all and then ruling him out one day. Their G Leaguers are questionable, as they are always listed questionable here. So what are your notes on the Bucks? Sans Bruce Brown, as our expectation is once again.
Yeah, same starting lineup. I would almost say regardless. They've been playing really well. Their pace has come down a little bit, but holy crap, Tyrese Halliburton just dropping 20-20s on the reg now. Just excellent game. Sam and I talked about betting them -4.5, and that hit actually a little tighter than we thought. They just had a killer fourth to close this game out. But yeah, how he's playing. And I almost thought he was like underpriced on most improved. Like he's got to be coming for Maxey here. So I thought about that's not the bet we're gonna hit, by the way. But just wanted to shout him out. And this lineup's been pretty good. Jalen Smith got a big tech, had a hilarious made fun of like Julius Randle for like flailing. But and then Nesmith, what a game. 7 threes from him. He's playing really well. I expect the starting lineup to continue again, kind of regardless of Bruce Brown, but obviously doubtful tag, not expecting him to play. It should mention, Ben Matherin's been closing a little bit. His minutes have actually held up quite nicely in this new rotation.
And Buddy Hield, do you think the minutes are still going to be more muted as long as Neesmith and Nembhard are playing effectively?
Yeah, they're going to need Neesmith in this matchup for sure with the size. So, yeah, the matchup's good, but I just think the starting lineup's been kind of too solid. So, yeah, not really too into it. Halliburton has crushed this matchup the 3 times they played. I think he's like 26 and 13, something like that. Not as good as Giannis, which we'll talk about in a second, but yeah, pretty good spot for Halliburton. Bucks are dead last in pick and roll handler points allowed now, and Halliburton's like first in like so many of those categories.
All right. It appears by your reactions that I am lagging. So if you want to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, I'll pop out and pop back in.
Sounds good. Yep, we have a little gap there. So yeah, let's talk about the Bucks. Let's just start with Giannis. I'm sure you guys are pretty sharp. You know this man. He has gone for 52, 12, and 3 in these games against the Pacers. So certainly a huge spot for Giannis. Again, just terrible rim defense against the league's best rim scorer. Injury-wise, not too much to note there. So yeah, expecting pretty strong minutes. Giannis not affected from this calf thing. He's been playing pretty full.
Yeah, Beauchamp questionable, the one note here. But, from a minutes rotation perspective, not a huge deal. They've got plenty of different bodies that they're willing to throw at this problem with Andre Jackson Jr., Pat Connaughton, so on and so forth.
Yep.
Okay, Charlotte.
To the Beasley minutes rebounded. He was kind of lagging a little bit, and Chris Middleton, excellent game. Getting a little bit more handling. We saw him get some point guard minutes as campaign's minutes got cut down. Middleton's kind of hot here with the full minutes hanging around that 33 mark, kind of night in, night out, it seems like.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I need to look into the data on the ball handling and the potential assist, but it seems like they've transitioned to running a lot more stuff through him with Dame off ball, and that's a very deadly combination if you're having Chris run pick and roll with Giannis. We saw that was so effective in the finals against the Suns a few years ago. And then have Dame as your off-ball shooter with Beasley on the other side. That's very, very dangerous. So it'll be interesting to see if those assist numbers for Middleton continue to hold. All right, let's move to Charlotte and Denver. Charlotte on the front end of a back-to-back here. Tough schedule for Charlotte. Happy New Year. Started off with a back-to-back at altitude. They're without Gordon Hayward. I think this is the 11th game in a row they've listed Mark Williams as doubtful. I don't know what's going on with this doubtful tag, but I'm assuming we're not going to see him. And then we get the same day downgrade on Terry Rozier, questionable due to illness. Always a concern. Still without LaMelo Ball, of course. So really shorthanded going into Denver against the champs. Really tough spot. What are your expectations for Charlotte tonight?
Yeah, great game from Rozier. To kind of you see the line was 14 for the spread here for how it finished. But they hung around. They were in this game kind of till late. So, just because Rozier went ham for 42. But yeah, illness, that was the fakest probable tag. They do this all the time. We talk about this, that the Hornets love putting fake probable tags like the Bucks do. So that was maybe a little bit of edge that we could have got into later, but now he's questionable. Now everyone's kind of seeing it coming here. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Brandon Miller's minutes have been back. Miles Bridges is in a slump. He can't make anything from the outside, but the minutes have been pretty strong. Nick Richards, terrible matchup. Big spread, 16-point spread. So we took an under on Rozier because of the illness, the altitude, and this huge spread here. So expecting the Hornets not, and just the Nuggets are kind of too solid. When they don't play in back-to-backs, the Nuggets are a really, really awesome team.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Nuggets, who have a probable tag on Reggie Jackson. Left calf tightness is the designation there. And then Aaron Gordon, questionable with the face lacerations, dealing with the recovery in those, which it was unclear what that timeline would look like after the injury first happened. The reporting on it made it sound like it could be a while just based on the depth of the wounds. But good news to see Aaron Gordon back with the team practicing and then gets a questionable tag. So I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about this situation. Peyton Watson has played fantastically in his absence. So what are your thoughts here on if we see Aaron Gordon tonight and how that would impact things?
Yeah, I kind of don't think so. I mean, they were like, it sounds terrible. I'm honestly curious to see how he's feeling from the dog incident there. But we'll see. This is obviously a unique situation. We've never seen this before. But yeah, as you mentioned, Peyton Watson getting left open a ton. Really strong game from him. They just didn't have this team. Like I mentioned, they just don't have it back to backs. They just don't have it for some reason. So yeah, not back in today for them. So expect them to be pretty full, as the Thunder just took it to him, which I guess we can go to hit the bet here that I've been kind of touting. Any other, if you guys want to log in for FanDuel while I hit this, do you have any Denver takes on how what you think of them?
No, other than really disappointing performance last game against Oklahoma City, and a game that I thought they'd come out more prepared for, and really they did not. And they let SGA get switched on to whoever he wanted to get switched on to, and he was able to kind of take advantage of that. Got himself off of KCP plenty and onto either Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray and took advantage of those matchups. He was in his comfort zone the whole game. We had an under on him. Yeah. And honestly, like, I was under 32.5. He shoots 70% from the field and 100% from the line. And it's like, I don't feel bad that we lost the bet, but I was also like, man, like, the guy's just in his bag right now. So yeah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah. So just before I talk about the bet, so Sam and I were talking. I talk about this hike all the time with Sam. We were hiking on Saturday, and like we take a lot of unders. That's our thing. Just like the guys who draw free throws, it's so hard to hit those unders, man. Do you have any thoughts on, like, I that's like my new thing. I was like, okay, does this guy get to the line enough where it's gonna like really hurt? Especially SGA, since he proved that last year's shooting from the line was no vote. Do you have any thoughts on that? I feel like that's something I've been thinking.
Not really. I would say that just generally, like, the star players just generally are more likely to see either matchup or public sentiment or recent performance kind of tick up their lines marginally, and that's where we can get some unders. But I don't think like like, I don't know. It's something that I can look at the data more, but I had not thought of it. Yeah. And it's not a huge concern. So something I would have to look at the data more to understand a little bit better.
All right. So the awards bet we're going to hit, it's on FanDuel. I don't know if it's anywhere else, but we're going to go to, and you guys we're kind of hinting where it's at. So we're going to go awards. I'm going to go on FanDuel for this one. And we're going to hit clutch player of the year. You and I talked through this. We're going to go SGA plus 500 for clutch player of the year. I've got a limit on it, so I'm going to max that thing. We talked a lot about Bobby Portis, so go ahead and hit SGA. Hopefully hit it right now. So I'm sure you guys are going to nuke this line. But yeah, he's just the OKC's too good, and he's probably not going to get MVP. So I think this is a good way to reward him. He's so money. He shoots like 63% in the clutch. Not big clutch numbers, but OKC's just too good. So I think SGA should. We talked about it. If you want to add anything now, or we can just send people to the pod too.
Yeah. Nothing else to add on it. I did see a comment in chat, someone asking about if Ish Smith would get the minutes if Terry Rozier is unable to go. What are your thoughts on that perspective in terms of who benefits most? Ish Smith, last game Terry Rozier missed, he started and was on path to play decent minutes, but then did not close in a game against, I believe it was against Denver, actually. I think if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, what are your thoughts on how the rotation would look if Terry Rozier is unable to go tonight?
Yeah, Smith season, Nick Smith Jr. also would benefit there. He picked up a ton of minutes, so yeah, I would expect him to start if he's out there.
Yeah, and I'd have to look at some blowout stuff a little bit more in depth, but I think there's a chance. It depends on the G Leaguers' availability and whatnot. Right now, they're listing Leaky Black out, which would open up the potential that Ish Smith could still play in blowout situations. But generally, they don't usually, especially if a guy started, they don't usually play them in blowout if they're a veteran player. That's very uncommon. So I'd have to work through the math on who they have still available, but something to note there. Okay, let's move to Dallas.
Did they bring up? I have to see if they have because Leaky Black's been like with the.
He's listed out right now.
He's listed. Okay, cool. So we'll see if he comes up, but they might call him up. We'll see. I'll have that information on the DFS show for you guys with G League tracker season.
Yep. All right. Dallas and Utah on the Dallas side of things. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Dante Exum, Seth Curry, all listed questionable here. What are your expectations for the Mavericks tonight?
Yeah, we saw the doubtful tag on Kyrie upgraded today. Seems like he's got a pretty good chance to return. Luka playing through this quad thing that's been bothering him since All-Star break of last year. So keep an eye on that. Certainly hasn't affected him, just playing freaking awesome basketball. So we saw Hardy kind of fill in there. We'd expect Kyrie to slot into those minutes. We'll see how this affects Tim Hardaway Jr.'s minutes, but expecting Dante Exum to start regardless. Jason Kidd said he's going to keep him locked in even when Kyrie's in there. So should be Luka, Kyrie, Dante Exum, Derek Jones Jr., and then Derek Lively, who's played freaking awesome over the weekend as well. Grant as the backup. And we'll see how Josh Green gets squeezed. He could, he's been playing great, but I could see his minutes getting squeezed just a bit because, and you could actually see Dwight Powell's minutes getting cut down. Jason Kidd loves to play small. He talks about how he likes to have teams match up with them and eat the size here. Certainly, they won't be going as small in the lively minutes, but everywhere else, I could see them go a little bit smaller.
All right, Utah side of things, they just have guys listed out here. It's mostly the G Leaguers. So, any notes on Utah? Who the starting lineup keeps changing, the rotation is like very inconsistent. It's very difficult to know what to expect from Utah these days. But what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, great win for them, but impossible, man. I don't have a read on this situation. I think they start this way again. I keep waiting for Jordan Clarkson to get the start, but they like Fontecchio guarding Luka, who he killed Fontecchio the last time they played 40 ball in like 32 minutes. So I'm expecting this to start, but they might. I don't know if like Will Hardy's doing this just to like keep opponents and us guessing. Because that's kind of what it feels like, right? We have like no clue who they're going to start. But should mention Kelly Olynyk was spectacular off the bench. Revenge game season, almost had a trip dub, a little short on the boards, but he played great. A lot of 4 minutes, so he was kind of backing up Laurie. But they ran the Laurie, Kelly Olynyk, Walker stuff a decent bit. John Collins' minutes got squeezed a little bit, somewhat surprisingly. But yeah, I don't have any feel on this starting lineup at all.
All right, let's move to Portland and Phoenix. On the Portland side, a very, very full injury report. Questionable tags for Tumani Kamara, Justin Minaya, Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert, and Shaden Sharp. They're without Anthony Simons, listed out due to illness. They have a doubtful tag on Duop Reith. They're without DeAndre Ayton due to right knee tendonitis. So what's left for Portland these days?
Yeah, Moses Brown started last game, and we had an under on him. Shout out to us with the 4 minutes. It's Jabari Walker season. He's going to start. I feel pretty confident in that. There's a lot of commentary that Chauncey Billups likes, playing smaller with him, and he's got enough physicality to handle guys. Certainly a tough task in Nurk, but he's playing too well not to start right now. So pretty high expectation for me on Jabari. Shaden's, as the injury report says, Ayton's still going to be dealing with time. There was some questions if he's going to be able to play on this road trip at all, but they sounded like Sharp was getting pretty close. This was an injury Sharp was playing through, and they, foolishly played him through this when he, kind of first started missing games here. So I would expect Sharp to start, and I would think it's still Brogdon. We've seen them kind of play Scoot up the bench, but I wouldn't be shocked with as great as Scoot's been playing. Maybe they just start him now. This kind of seems like the spot to do it overall. But I'm still leaning Brogdon to start next to Shaden Sharp. I think might even bench Sharp too, just because Scoot's playing so well. Kind of keep his minutes in check.
They also might have Tumani Kamara not available, which would open up a spot from that perspective as well. Was there any comments from Chauncey Billups about Moses Brown? Like it was a plan the first 2 games to start him and only play him like 14, 16 minutes. And then this last game, only 4. It just seems so strange to me to even go in with a plan like that, where you're only going to play him, so much. And it came kind of out of nowhere because Brown had been on the roster all year. So I was wondering if there's any commentary from Billups on it, because it's been such a strange way to handle a player just naturally.
No, just that, again, like the Jabari, he just talked to Jabari for half his presser. So yeah, I think that's, by propping up Jabari, you're kind of bashing Moses, not directly. If you catch
for sure, but he was never set up in a position to succeed.
Right.
So I don't understand like what you like 4 minutes is really nothing, and they were down by 2. It's not like it was 4 minutes and they're down by 16 and like, we got to make a change. So it's just so strange as an approach. But yeah, it's something that I'm certainly monitoring as well. Let's move to the Phoenix side of things. They have not submitted an injury report. At least they did not prior to this. I know the injury report is coming out any second now for the 2:30. So should we just skip ahead to Miami and the Clippers and come back? Okay, let's go to Miami and the Clippers. We'll come back to the Suns. Miami injury report also very full here. No Jimmy Butler, right foot irritation. Looks like all those playoff minutes from Jimmy are finally starting to catch up to him this year because he has not looked like the same and he has not been healthy during the course of the year. Haywood Highsmith is doubtful here. Caleb Martin is also doubtful. Then they've got questionable tags on Kyle Lowry, Josh Richardson, Orlando Robinson, and Cole Swider. The Cole Swider questionable tag is notable just because he's a G League player who they normally would list out just as a G League player. So what are your expectations here for the Heat, who are extremely shorthanded?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy's injury looked bad. He got looked at right foot, went straight to the locker room. I assume got X-rayed, got ruled out instantly. So in a close game, right? So certainly, I would be shocked if Jaime Jaquez doesn't get the starting job here. I think Lowry's been playing through this, so I think he could be back. So that would mean a starting lineup. And I think Jovic kind of starts again. I think they kind of want to, kind of like Moses Brownie, where he'll start and then kind of come out. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at there, but. The headline is going to be a lot of Jaime Jaquez. We'll see maybe a little bit of Kevin Love overlap. Duncan Robinson, we know they don't really like to start him and Hero together, so I would expect he'll start to kind of come off the bench, but the minutes will be there for sure. So yeah, those are kind of, and we'll see if Jamal Cain played really well. I'd expect him to kind of stick with the injuries they have here. He was good.
RJ Hampton started this game, played the first 8 minutes of the game, did not start the second half, and then did not play in the second half. Jamal Cain took his spot in the rotation in the second half. If they're without Butler, let's say like all the questionables don't play, Butler, Haywood Highsmith, Lowry, Caleb Martin, Josh Richardson, Orlando Robinson, Cole Swider, that would leave essentially RJ Hampton, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. I have to count through this. Nikola Jovic, Kevin Love, Duncan Robinson, Jamal Cain, Jaime Jaquez, and Thomas Bryant. I think that would be 9 that they'd have available at that point. And I guess you would expect all 9 of those guys to play in that scenario. But it's in terms of guys they trust, they'd be down to Hero, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, Duncan Robinson, and Kevin Love. Those would be the guys that they trust. So you could end up seeing really condensed minutes here. This game is not on the DraftKings slate. I believe it's being cut off of both as it's a 10:30 standalone game. And honestly, I think that's a reprieve for a lot of DFS players because this many questionable tags going into this game, like who knows who could end up being a viable salary relief play. So I think it's a great example of one of the slates where I'm welcoming a game being cut off. Any other thoughts on the Heat before we move to the Clippers?
Yeah, I should just mention that Jamal Cain was out of the rotation, and then he came in when Butler got hurt. He came back into Butler's spot. So RJ down quite bad that they had to bring in another rotation player to fill those minutes.
Yep. Clippers side of the injury report, Kawhi Leonard still questionable with that left hip contusion, and Mason Plumlee questionable with left MCL sprain. First time we've seen Mason Plumlee upgraded from the out tag. So what are your notes on the Clippers tonight?
Yeah, this they've been hopeful, quote unquote, that Kawhi's going to be back out there, and obviously Tyler's been pretty coy here. So yeah, not too much to add. Definitely a chance he could be back from a hip contusion. If he's out, then obviously they would continue to start Amir Coffey. Paul George would be in a really, really big spot, almost regardless. I kind of like him here, but and then Harden, great role, man. Big minutes, huge touch time. I believe it was his highest touch time game of the season with like 9.2 minutes or something. Like it was like Houston Harden from a role standpoint. The scoring wasn't there, sure, but he's playing great. The Clippers are kind of that they've cooled a little bit. We saw them go completely ham on that winning streak when they had like 130 offensive rating, but still playing really well.
And if Plumlee if Plumlee is able to return, are you expecting that just to be the Tice minutes, or Zubats? Do you think we'll get back to what we saw earlier in the season, which was Zubats mid-20s and Plumlee like low 20s or like 20-ish? Do you think that would get there eventually? Do you think it would be right from the start? What are your thoughts on kind of if Plumlee's available?
Yeah, it probably takes the mid-30s. We saw him play the one game they didn't have Tice for an illness like 2 weeks ago that he played like 40. So yeah, the minutes ceiling comes down. Probably would take him to like 27 kind of number. 20. Yeah, that's kind of where I'd be. And then I would expect Plumlee to have a little bit of a limit.
Okay, let's circle back on Phoenix. They did not file, so still no knowledge of what to expect here. But what are your thoughts on what we might see from Phoenix tonight?
Definitely keep an eye on Bradley Beal. He played pretty well last night in a pretty tough matchup. The drive stats were really good. He was perfect on his drives. He shot 4-4 on drives, 4-4 from the free throw line. Looked great. Minutes were normal, but definitely think he could be managed here. He talked about how tough this ankle thing was from him there. So, but yeah, I'm expecting that's the only thing. Other than that, tight rotation here. Almost like 6-man with a little bit of Chimezie Metu behind Nurk Daddy there. But yeah, expect them to. We coaches do this a lot when they're on a back-to-back. They'll kind of expand their rotation. So I would expect that to be the case after a tight win last night.
Yep. All right, that will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. We want to thank you all for. Oh, I've just lost Mike. He's gone entirely away. So I'll just close this out. Thank you all for watching and enjoying. As always, if you enjoy the content that we are putting out there, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live. And of course, if you are interested in any of our behind the paywall content, you can check out establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details and information around the product. Myself and Gary Hartman will be live behind the paywall at 5:00 Eastern time today, breaking down the good play, the good chalk, the bad chalk, the leverage contrarian plays, so on and so forth. And of course, always the flag plants. This holiday sale is not supposed to be up any longer. Okay, good. It's not. There we go. So the bundle price is still down. The seasonal prices have been adjusted for the remaining time in the season, but the weekly and monthly prices. So if you got in on the sales last week, we welcome you aboard. We look forward to interacting with you in our Discord and on our shows as well. As always, if you like the content that we're putting out there and you want to help support this content, while it is free, it is currently free. It will continue to be free potentially going forward. You could do so by feeding that algorithm and smashing that like button. That's the best way to feed the algorithm. It helps feed our families and allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need to make your spread bets, your prop bets, and set your DFS and season-long lineups. So if you want to help feed that algorithm and allow us to feed our families, smash that like button, press it firmly, caress it gently, whatever you need to do that like button to help feed that algorithm. We appreciate you doing it. Happy New Year to everybody out there. We will be back again tomorrow with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Take care, everybody.